So recently I've been making a lot of content about reality design, how life is a video game, spirituality, self-development, how it all merges together. But today I want to talk about, in a less structured way, about the problems that young people are going through today that I don't really see anyone talking about. And if they are talking about it, they really suck at talking about it because maybe they're not young or they're an older generation. They're trying to perceive what young people are going through to help older people understand. But from my knowledge base of what I've gathered over the years, and also just being a younger person in this generation and going through these types of problems I'm going to talk about, I think it's important to hear it at least from young people. And I think that's the first problem that young people really experience is, when you're an older person, you don't really want to hear out what young people say because you're the elder, you know more. Those young dumb kids are just always on their phone. They don't know what they're doing. And until you reach a certain age, then and only then, you're actually able to communicate with us at that level because you've now surpassed that childlike or teenager mode. And I think that that's one thing that young people are really frustrated with. That's something that, growing up, I was super frustrated with that. And I think that it's very common to feel when you're a young person, like a preteen, teenager, that everyone else is kind of like always undermining you. They don't really value you much at all. I mean, you have to prove you're a man, you have to prove you're grown up, you got to do this or that. You got to do all this stuff to kind of prove and show that you've done things in the world to now, all right, I have that value associated with me. But, when I was growing up, I don't know how else to explain it. I just knew things. I knew things that no one else knew. And it's not like that just came from nothing or that was something to downplay or that's something really small. It was actually very significant. I just knew a lot of stuff that seemingly came from nowhere. And maybe it's spiritual, maybe it's a hyper perceptual awareness, whatever it is. I just could tell and feel and see things that no one else around me could see, but constantly felt like no one else wanted to listen to me. And I think that's a byproduct of when you're a young person, you're kind of switched on, you're tuned on to reality, to how things are going, and you see the patterns of life and stuff. You can kind of feel as though that it's very hard to communicate what you're actually going through because you always want to be really, really deep with everything. And I think that young people now are more deep and introspective than really any other previous generation. And again, I keep on looking at how the older generation, maybe it's just an older generational thing, maybe in 20, 30 years I'll be this way, I don't even know. But there's something about looking at the generation after you as somehow inferior to you because, these kids are always on their phone, like I said, or they don't have these skills, this knowledge that we have as a collective. So, the generations are just getting worse and worse and worse. And that's something that young people collectively feel. They feel a collective judgment placed upon them that they're not going to quite match up to the older generation because they don't value things like getting a job and working there for 40 years, or they're not interested in buying a house or maybe even getting married or having kids. They're not interested in the older ways of what kind of their previous generations set out for them to be like. And I think that when you're a young person today, if you're especially paying attention to life and reality at all, you can see that there's a lot of patterns going on that you kind of had to inherit by default of just existing at this point in time. But we're also finding that there's so many other patterns that we can redevelop and kind of reprogram over that we even still kind of get discouraged to even want to do that because, the older generations think we're just kind of fooling around with their traditional systems. And again, because they're the older generation, they know more than us, and so we just got to follow their way. And I think I see a lot of young people, they kind of want to step away from that older generational traditional path, right? I mean, I certainly did. When I was 18, I couldn't wait to leave my house and just, I'll do anything. I'll be homeless, I'll sleep on the street in the middle of winter, I'll do anything just to get away from the dictation and this overarching system of living in your parents' house, or just kind of always feeling like there's new rules being placed upon you and they don't make sense. They just seem like they're from a controlling narrative that doesn't really align with what you value as a young person. And so I would do anything just to kind of be free, and I valued freedom as much as possible. I want to be free from any lines or anything that like I'm not supposed to cross. I just want to cross it anyway because why'd you tell me that? I mean, that's dumb. And I think that young people, they feel this. They feel like they're. I mean, it kind of depends the situation you're in, but they feel like, in a certain sense, that they're being perpetually controlled, and that control is coming from a lack of trust. And when you're not really feeling like you can be trusted, sometimes you'll act out in ways where you'll just kind of mirror the pattern of what people are putting onto you just to show you that you don't want to be that identity. So when people don't trust you and they want to protect you from doing something bad, you'll just do a bad thing anyway to lock into that identity to show them that they're right, but kind of in a fuck you sort of way. And that's kind of screwed up how the nature of like trauma and the nature of kind of growing up as a kid works. But I mean, that's a functionality of, I guess, moving energy around. And so young people, they feel this. They feel like there's something wrong. They're like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why is the world so screwed up in a way? And what am I supposed to do about it? Because all my peers, they're becoming millionaires. They're getting Bugattis. They're getting Lambos. Everyone's drop shipping, or everyone's buying meme tokens. And here I'm trying to go work at some dumb job and nothing's working out. Right? That's like a lot of what young people, I think, feel. Is they feel like there's this alternate reality that you can step into. It's right there. Everyone's marketing to you. Everyone's trying to sell you. This is the new way. And it's not like it's a bad thing to ever feel like there is this new alternative reality that you can, step into. I think it's actually really, really good. I mean, it can be a dissociation pattern for sure to definitely feel like the reality that you're in right now is not good and you need to get to a different one. Many times you can like do that and you'll start to find that it was always sort of you and the configuration of you that you were stepping into, and not necessarily the environment so much that had to change. I mean, sometimes it does, but young people, because there's so much opportunity, there's so much stuff you can do. We see so many things slide into our phone all the time. We see all these pictures, all these places we can be. They feel overwhelmed with not really being sure what to do. And again, kind of comes back down to the older generation pressuring them to follow their way. A lot of young people don't want to follow the old way because simply a part of being younger is that you see the patterns of what came before you. You see how it's actually not working out. Yeah, I don't know how many people I meet all the time where you meet an older person, they're like, you need to believe in Jesus, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, or work this job, you're going to be happy, everything's going to be good. And all I see from these people is sadness, pain, depression. Their shit is not in order at all. Their life does not look good. I don't want to be them whatsoever. And so young people, they're kind of starting to grow this sense of selfishness and narcissism out of a protection mechanism, because it's the only way that they can actually take their power back and be like, you don't know what's right and you're in freaking la la land. So, I mean, I'm not going to follow you at all. Like, just bye. And that's very much, I think, the number one thing that I inherited, and the thing that really kind of worked out for me when I was growing up is something about it. I was just able to be extremely truthful and honest about what I seen in reality, and that just like always was there and never stopped not being there. And so young people, they feel so many things. They feel this sense of optimism about their life, but the reality that they actually live in, they're continuously not feeling like anyone's taking them seriously, when in fact they probably should, but maybe they're not taking them seriously because they haven't developed the skills enough to be able to communicate in an articulate way what they actually think. And so it's just so much easier to play video games than to develop those real life skills. And I think that's what I had noticed when I was younger, was like, if I don't get really, really articulate about nearly everything that I can possibly think of and then communicate that to another person to get them to understand me, I don't think my reality at all is going to ever get solved or situated or figured out. And so, I mean, I guess that's what I would prompt to you if you're a younger person, is to start locking in on that right now. Try to get really articulate about everything that you possibly think about and try to put it in a different position and package in your mind, access it kind of like you're a computer. And I think that when it comes down to, I guess, to sort of paint the final picture here, young people, they're now more overwhelmed than they've ever been, but also there's a reason for that. I mean, look at the economy, man. Look at the job market, right? I'm a proper software engineer now. Maybe a couple years ago I wasn't, but I'm a proper software engineer. Like, I could be hired, but I've never had a software engineering job. I've applied to like 300 different jobs. Show my resume. I got a good resume. I got a lot of good projects. I have an extensive entrepreneurial background of 15 years. Can't find a job. Just can't find anywhere where anyone sees any value or usefulness in my skills at all. Like zero. And I'd say that I'm actually a pretty exceptional person in that regard in terms of work ethic. I show up on time, I say the right things, I do the right things, I'm speedy, I'm quick, I have high quality work ethics. I'm not only that, I'm actually just good at what I do. And it's been impossible for me to just find, projects or side projects where people could value or utilize, what I have to offer. Maybe that's a skill issue. I don't know. And I just can't help but think that economically, if you're a younger person today, if you don't have those, like even a fraction of even my skills, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you feel optimistic about the future or anything. And again, it just kind of comes down to everyone wants to buy a meme token, everyone wants to play video games and stream them and make digital money and just live their life like that. And it's a coping mechanism, but it's also an understandable coping mechanism because the world is not the same anymore. The world that we've inherited as young people is not how older generations say to us it is, because they're not even tuned into what it is anymore because they don't have to. The average person stops growing after 25 years old or something. They stop growing mentally, spiritually. It's kind of like going autopilot. And I see that even with my peers today, people who are my age. I already see the autopilots, kind of snap in. And so, obviously it's true for the older generations as well. After a certain age, you just kind of stop paying attention to things that used to be relevant to you, and you kind of snap into that adult mode, which I haven't snapped into yet, which I probably never will. I don't ever see y'all snap into an adult mode. That's weird. And it's kind of cool that being a young person, being switched on like this, it does make you unique and different, and it will help you and bring opportunities to you. But there's a massive delay in terms of what you'll actually be able to create here, or what type of benefits or results that you're ever going to see, because oftentimes you just got to stick to the hard work and you got to stick to keep on doing it and stay consistent. And that's another attribute that young people really don't have due to the instant gratification and seeing a bunch of things floating on their screen all the time. And so they don't really value necessarily the reality screen, what's on my screen of reality. They value what's on the artificial screen. And so it's all just like one big psyop in a way, where you can't really blame the younger generation for having the problems that they have, because it's such an intense psychological, mental, and probably at this point, it's definitely a spiritual battle. And so there's many different ways of how we can really say to our younger generation that, yeah, you suck, you're not as good as us, you don't know how to change your oil, you don't know how to, take care of this car part and flip it out for another one, you don't know how to do this more basic stuff. But, young people, they can do a lot more than that. And really, when you start getting younger people onto the digital realms and things they can do with computers and technology and things they understand culturally, that also has a value which we haven't really began to quantify yet. It's like, that's extremely valuable. If you talk to a younger person, you talk about their language that they use, the thoughts that they have, what they think. It's all extremely relevant and valuable information because they're much closer to the source of what's happening now. And there is a value to what's happening now, especially if you're not tuned into it. The more you tune into what's happening now, obviously, you're gonna pick up on things that you didn't have before, and it's extremely valuable what the Gen Z and all these generations are gonna create here in the future. It's just gonna be perpetually amazing, actually, to witness the creativity and the new ideas and things that our older generations, even including mine, I'm almost 30, but getting there, I'm continuously amazed at new stuff that's always happening that younger generations are creating, which is definitely a confirmation that they have some sense of a higher creative capacity than we do. And so they come in a lot more tuned on and switched on in a way, but they often have a hard time articulating what they actually think and feel. And so we easily want to surface level project or judge them that they don't know anything at all. So young people, they feel that. They feel all this pressure, they feel all this overwhelm. The economy is not what it used to be. The job market's not what it used to be. You're not gonna buy a home, just forget it. You're gonna live in a tiny home, which I would love to. Like I said, the job market's not the same. Everything's gone up in prices. And you're just kind of starting out. You don't really know what to do. You don't really know how to move forward. And your peers, all they wanna do is distract themselves. Maybe you're different. And so that's rough, man. That's not like a thing to just say like, okay, yeah, whatever. I mean, that's really something. So I've been thinking about how to address these issues, and I don't know yet, besides making these videos, obviously, but we're gonna have to fix that, and I don't know how, but we will.